What is up, you guys? Teller checking in for the recap of Noche UFC, a card that was a little bit frustrating for me. We had a little mishap with a referee in the cage. We had a little mishap with some judges in the main event. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot about the main event that took place. I'll give you guys my thoughts on that fight. I did have some action intertwined in that fight, so a lot to talk about there. All in all, though, out of 11 fights, we were only wrong on 3 fights throughout the entire card. We did pretty decent there. A lot of heavy favorites, though. We'll start at the bottom of this card. We'll recap it all the way up to the top. One quick side note, I will have Dana White's Contender Series prediction video up very shortly. I'll be working on recording that right after I record this, so it'll be coming up right after you see this video up on the channel. And yeah, let's start off with the first fight, which was Josephine Knutson taking on Marnic. Mann, I told you guys that this chick Knutson's the real deal. A very technical fighter, a very well-rounded fighter. We know that she comes into MMA with a striking background, but she really seems to be fine-tuning her overall game. I was in agreement with DC. I thought that she should have got the contract when she fought just the other week on Dana White's Contender Series. And Marnic, Mann, she's known as being this tough little cookie, but I mean, she's just undersized. She's sloppy. It was a tough sight to witness, right? You see the camera zoom in on her family right before the fight starts, and I knew exactly how that fight was going to play out. Now, the line on Knutson was pretty high. I saw her settling in as high as like a minus 800 favorite. So, in retrospect, I do wish that I would have jumped on that line immediately when it was a little lower, but it was a high line there. So we'll see who Knutson gets next. And then Charlie Campbell. This is another fight that I probably should have looked to intertwine in my parlay, because you guys will see what I did with my 2-team parlay coming up. But Charlie Campbell, this was a fighter that I was very high on coming in. This is a fight finisher for sure. When you break down tape on him, that's what he's been doing. He's been going out there looking to finish his opponents. We saw it on Dana White's Contender Series as he almost had to finish early on in that fight. Eventually, he did get clipped with the shot. As he was beating down Alex Reyes in the first round of this fight, I don't think any of us could have helped but remember when he got caught on that DWCS fight where he almost finished the very tough Chris Duncan, and then he was clipped, and we were kind of wondering, is something like that going to happen again? He did seem to be a little bit more composed this time, learning from his mistakes. He was patient, and then eventually just landing those big shots and getting Reyes out of there. Reyes coming in off an extremely long layoff. I just thought that he didn't look too fresh in there, and honestly, I don't know, you could blame ring rust or whatnot, but I think he's a fighter that maybe just needs to go look to do something else with his life. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on him, but I just didn't see it in there. And Charlie Campbell's a very accurate boxer. I think that there's some big fights to make with him in the lightweight division moving forward. Tracy Cortez edges out Jasmine Jasudavicius, or Jasudavicius, however you want to say that last time. It's a little bit of a tongue twister for me, but I had Jasmine winning this fight coming in, right? I did pick her to win this fight. I thought this fight played out a lot closer than what the judges scored it. And the fact that the judges scored the fight 30-27, I believe 2 of them, that showed you right off the rip that there was some bias with the event, right? With the crowd all rooting for the Mexican fighters. There's absolutely no way that Tracy Cortez won all three rounds. She lost the second round, I believe. I believe it was the second round. I thought this fight came down to the 3rd round. There was no question about it. And I think that you could argue that Jasmine potentially took the 3rd round. But I will say that I edged Cortez taking that 3rd round. I just like the way that she was landing the crisper shots with her hands. She just was a little bit more fresh, a little bit more power and zest and pop in her boxing. And I thought that Jasmine made a grave error when she was pushing the pace on Cortez. Cortez looked to be a little bit tired in there. And there was a moment, if you remember, where Jasmine kind of grabbed her hair and threw that knee. And Cortez didn't really like it, and she wasn't doing anything about it. She was just kind of complaining. They were talking back and forth. I thought that Jasmine should have did that, and instead of just putting her hands down and talking, I thought she should have just kept pushing the pace, pushing for takedowns, and just making things nasty, throwing knees in the clinch. Jasmine definitely needs to work on her striking defense and needs to work on her striking offense as far as her boxing skills and whatnot. She's not really that sharp with her striking from the outside. She just kind of pushes the pace and she pushes that pressure on her opponents. She's kind of sloppy, but she's still a tough fighter, man. You don't see a lot of fighters go out there and get takedowns on a girl like Tracy Cortez, who has that wrestling background. A very close fight, but again, I thought, when you see the scorecard say 30-27 for Cortez, you understand what kind of night it's going to be. And again, that these judges don't really understand what they're doing in there. And again, I'm not saying that Cortez shouldn't have got the W, but it was not 30-27, okay? And every round was very close. Every round was very close, but Cortez looked good. She looked good. She has some solid boxing skills, and I'm excited to see what's next for her. And remember, she's the only fighter that has ever defeated Erin Blanchfield, who I think Blanchfield's time is coming up very soon here. I think she's going to be the new champion very soon. She you know, we'll get to that later. But okay, now we had Edgar Charez to defeat Daniel Lacerda. We know that the ref, that ref there, Chris Taoni, with the tattooed head, you know, is trying to act like he still has hair on top of his melon when it's clearly, it clearly looks like, you know, his grandson was rubbing permanent marker on his head and he was trying to wash it off and stuff. But, you know, you guys saw what happened, right? The telecast team, Dominic Cruz saw it coming before it even happened. We all saw it happening. But I'll tell you what, Edgar Charez was in control of this fight, and he was going to take over this fight. I'm not going to say that he was going to finish that submission, which maybe there was some potential, but Lacerda's arm was kind of in there. I promise you guys, Charez was going to end up finishing Lacerda in this fight. I'm telling you guys, I've been very high on what I've been seeing from Charez. You take a look at his two losses. They were to Tatsuro Taira and the very talented young kid who's been on a tear right now. That was on Dana White's Contender Series, the loss he had against Clayton Carpenter. In between those two losses, and I thought in both those losses, he showed how tough he was going to decision with both them. I was very impressed with his two victories over in one in Fury FC, two victories in the regional scene. He's a talented fighter. He has legit sub skills, and his striking is sharp. Okay, so keep an eye on Charez. Maybe they run that fight right back. And obviously, you guys know, I like that play as a leg on a parlay. So if you can get that same line, I got it at -250. If you can grab that same type of line when they do the rematch, there's some talks about that happening in Brazil. I would be on Charez there. Charez would have won that fight. I'm telling you guys. All right. Roman Kopylov, another little bit of a regret of mine here. I was on Kopylov. I should have had him mixed in a parlay. I like this dude, Kopylov. For those of you guys that follow me on IG, MMA Fortune Teller _, you saw I had a little post about him. He is, or at least at the time of this fight, he's not in the top 15. And I think he's a fighter that goes out there and finishes a lot of guys in the top 15. I'm telling you guys right now, I would take him over Marvin Vettori. I would take him over Roman Delize. I would take him over a lot of these guys in the top 10. Jack Hermanson. Roman Kopylov is the real deal. Had a little bit of a slow start to his UFC career. He has now had 4 finishes in a row. And this is a fighter, you know, you think about when he had his debut against Carl Robertson, he has evolved so much. I truly believe that he has evolved so much. He's tricky on the feet, fights out of the southpaw stance. He's a fight finisher. He's very well rounded. You saw when Friend went for the takedown and whatnot. I mean, he had cat-like reflexes. You ain't getting this guy down easily to the mat. And he's the real deal. I'll just say that much right there. So a little bit of a high line. I wish that I would have used him as my other leg with Charez. And then we had Lupita Garines dominating Elise Reed. Absolute domination. She looked very good. Used her wrestling and her striking as well. Just beat down Elise Reed. And we were on Lupi Garines. I was a little worried, though, if you guys remember, that if Elise Reed could have kept the fight standing, could have used her judo skills, and maybe, you know, we thought maybe she could have been consistently working on her takedown defense, because we know that's her one weakness, that on the feet she might have been a little bit more fluid with her boxing, or close, or she would have been able to keep it close enough that it could have been a close fight. But no, Lupi dominates. Now, this was my other leg in the 2-team parlay. Kyle Nelson loses to Fernando Padilla. I thought that the judges were a little interesting on this one as well. I believe there was a 30-27 for Kyle Nelson, I believe, if I remember correctly. It was a unanimous decision. I thought Padilla was possibly going to edge this fight out. I was obviously not very convinced, and Kyle Nelson fought a good fight. And for Fernando Padilla, I had this fight going into the third round. Whoever would have won that third round would have won the fight. And Padilla was the fighter constantly pressuring, but there's no question about it. He just had no volume in his hands. It was very strange, to be honest. I think maybe he was hurting there, wobbled. I know his leg was compromised. He had some heavy leg kicks early on. He was not letting his hands go. He was not throwing combinations like we normally see him do. I think he's still a very talented kid. I'm surprised he dropped the ball here, to be quite honest, but I thought this fight played out a lot closer than a unanimous decision, especially a 30-27 on the scorecard, I believe, for one judge. I thought it could have been 29-28 either way, and I'm not going to argue that Kyle Nelson should have lost the fight. I think that maybe he should have. Maybe you want to rewatch the third round, see how it played out. But Kyle Nelson didn't have a lot of volume, but he was very accurate. He was fighting very technically he was very technical with his defensive skills, I will say. All right, so we go over to the Christos Chiagos fight. He was finished with that anaconda choke by Daniel Zuluber. Daniel Zuluber, a very talented fighter. I thought maybe Christos Chiagos could have used the experience that he has. He's a much more mature fighter. He was coming off the biggest victory of his career, and it was a tough fight for him if we're being honest, right? Zuluber didn't look so good in that Trey Ogen fight, but he's been getting it together again. He's a talented fighter, and he gets the job done. We picked that incorrectly, but you guys know Chiagos is my boy. I did truly think that I did truly believe that he could have potentially took that fight, but that's my boy, but it didn't go good for him there. Rosas Jr. Gets that crazy knockout over Terrence Mitchell. Let's be frank about this fight. Terrence Mitchell is not a UFC fighter. The UFC better never throw him on a card again, especially not on the main card of an event like this. But I get it. Rosas Jr. gets the pass because he's still a very, very young kid. So I have no problem with that. Let him get his experience. It was fun to watch. And, I threw a little scrappy 3-team parlay together. It wasn't an official play, but as I was drinking, watching the fights, I parlayed Rosas Jr., Jack Della Maddalena, and Valentina Shevchenko. I threw a crazy drunk parlay together that would have paid crazy. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But Jack Della Maddalena, he goes out there. I believe he won every single round against Kevin Holland. I know a lot of you guys know I'm a little bit of a Holland hater, but no, I'm being real with you guys here. Listen, you guys got to know what you're watching here. And listen, Michael Bell, this is one of the judges that he actually scored this fight for Kevin Holland. I thought that was egregious. Listen, if you know what you're watching, okay, Kevin Holland, all the volume that he was throwing, all that little pitter-patter, little quick stuff, it was all hitting Jack Della Maddalena's gloves. I don't understand how you guys are not watching that. When Jack Della Maddalena's closing the distance and dropping off bombs to the body, landing heavy hooks to the head. I mean, just outlanding Kevin Holland and with much heavier, cleaner shots, controlling the distance of this fight. How in the hell do you give the fight to Kevin Holland? This judge, Mike Bell, man, I honestly believe this guy has something going on behind the scenes. It's just an opinion of mine, or a possibility that this dude is biased with who he's picking to win these fights for other reasons, because I don't understand how you give Kevin Holland that fight. It's like you're rooting for the guy and you want to see him win for some reason, and you pick the guy because I don't know how any of you guys had Kevin Holland win that fight. It wasn't a blowout, but Jack Della Maddalena won every round of that fight. Okay, if you know what you're watching, he won every round of that fight, period. I don't want to hear nothing else about it. All right, and that goes into the main event, where we got a lot to talk about right now, okay? Mike Bell is the judge that scored a 10-8 round for Alexa Grasso in the 5th round. First and foremost, okay, we'll talk about some other aspects of this fight, but first and foremost, that is ridiculous. You could argue that Valentina Shevchenko won the 5th round. I don't think she won the 5th round, but if you guys want to run that 5th round back, Valentina Shevchenko was jabbing the face off of Alexa Grasso for 3.5 minutes of that 5th round. She went in for that takedown. She made a mistake for sure. Alexa Grasso capitalized on it, took her back, had about a minute of back control time, was going for the sub, and was landing some shots from the back. And Shevchenko was blocking and defending correctly, and she basically gave up that 5th round by making that error. But a 10-8 on that 5th round is absolutely ridiculous. It boils my blood because, obviously Valentina Shevchenko would have won the fight. I had a 6.5 unit play on her, grabbed it at minus 165, and I definitely stand behind that play. It was obviously a void, but I thought Shevchenko won this fight. Now, if you want to argue anything about this fight, you can argue that Alexa Grasso took the 5th round, which would have, a 10-9, took the 5th round. You can try to argue to me that she won the fight 48-47. I'll disagree with you. Just rewatched that 4th round again. Thought Valentina Shevchenko definitely took the 4th round. She took rounds 1, 3, and 4, and she was on her way to winning round 5 easily until she made that mistake. I'll tell you this much as well. Shevchenko dominates 20 minutes of the 25-minute fight, okay? Dominates this fight realistically, besides the flashes that Grasso had. Grasso drops Shevchenko in the 2nd round, a nice right to the cheek, and, Valentina Shevchenko kind of somersaulted back to take, kind of get her wits and whatnot. Grasso had that moment where she was throwing the knees. I think those moments in the fight were way oversold. You had the crowd going crazy. If you want to go watch that fight back, just go watch it on mute and actually look at those rounds. You guys, if you want to be honest with yourselves, you'll see what I'm talking about, okay? This was a fight. It's like if Grosso did any little thing, it was like, oh my God, look what she's doing. And then Shevchenko's just going out there landing these crisp shots, and it's just like, okay, nothing's going on, just, crowd's quiet. But you guys know what I'm talking about. It's just there's a complete biasness when you have a crowd that's going crazy for one fighter. Valentina Shevchenko won this fight, in my opinion. It was a shame that she didn't get her hand raised. But Grosso looks good. Grosso has major flaws with her takedown defense still. And you throw her in there with Erin Blanchfield. I think Blanchfield's going to dominate her. I don't know what they're going to do here. I guess you do another rematch here where I still would have Shevchenko, and I'll still throw money on her again if I can get her anywhere under minus 200. And you throw this in a cage that's just a regular just a regular type of event where it wasn't, Mexican Independence Day and all that. I think Shevchenko easily goes out there, gets the job done. And, I know some of you guys may disagree. I will agree to disagree there, nothing but respect towards your way. Again, the fourth round was somewhat close, but Shevchenko definitely won that fight, just jabbing Grosso's face off. You guys want to talk about damage? Look at Grosso was bloodied up. And again, go rewatch those big moments that Grosso had and go look at how heavily those shots were landing. And they weren't really that much, and they weren't as elongated of a flurry as you think. They were very quick. It was like, there was little moments that she had, and you guys all, she took the round because of that. It's a 5-minute round. I can go on and on. Let me just hop off the mic now. I don't want to bother you guys too much. All right, those were my thoughts on the card. We lost 5 units. The 2-team parlay, which I thought we could have potentially hit, didn't go our way, and I'm not going to argue that. I mean, Padilla definitely didn't do enough. Didn't do as good as he should have. All right, grabbed him at minus 250 as well. Had two minus 250 plays together, which was almost at even odds, which I like that play there, again with Charez, but it was what it was. And we move on to the next card. And like I said, guys, we'll have Dana White's Contender Series out to you very shortly here. Going to record that now. Hope all you guys profited on this event. All right, guys? All right, we'll talk very soon. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.